Hey KU fans, welcome back to KU Sports Extra. I'm Matt Tait and I'm joined by Tom Keegan. And Tom, already our 4th episode of KU Sports Extra. Where does the time go?
Time flies when you're having fun covering KU football.
Well, there you go. Let's get right into it then. The good news with KU this week. Number 1, there's 3 parts to this. Number 1, the KU football team got back on the winning track. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't pristine, but they did win the game, and they did do that with a strong 4th quarter, both on offense and defense. That's good news for football. I think it'd be a good time also to point out the hot starts by the KU soccer team and the KU volleyball team. Soccer's 9-1, volleyball's ranked 23rd, and they're 12-2. Both of them, along with KU football, opening Big 12 play this week. That's big news. Let's also give a shout out to Ray Bouchard, win number 1,000. If you win 1,000 games in your career,
you're old.
That's good news too. Bad news, let's switch over from Ray Bouchard being old to bad news, you're the guy.
So you did get your 3 and I was still frozen on 1.
Yeah, I forgot to nudge you, my bad.
The bad news is that KU scored 3 points against Duke, and Texas has a much better defense, everyone agrees, than Duke. So if you can only score 3 against Duke, how many are you going to score against Texas?
That is definitely bad news. Going to have to score more than 3 points to even have a chance against Texas. Nothing lost in translation about that. Let's move into Lost in Translation and hear what Coach Weiss had to say this week.
It's always tough to follow a legend. You know, when you go to Texas, following Mac Brown, what are you do? Going to come in and say, here's all the things Mac Brown was doing wrong? I mean, it's kind of tough to do that.
Translation, I didn't have to follow a legend. I followed Turner Gill. And by the way, I passed Turner Gill. I was last all-time with a winning percentage worse than Turner Gill's and Bob Velacente's. Now, Bob Velacente's worse, Turner Gill is 2nd worst, and I'm 3rd worst with 222 winning percentage.
Yeah, that's Turner Gill, Mac Brown, not so much of a comparison to be made there.
No, so now it's time for Breakdown Street, where you can find Matt Tait standing on the corner swinging a red bag.
I don't have my red bag. Someone must have stole it over on the corner. But I do have some thoughts about the KU-Texas matchup. We've already gotten into it a little bit. Let's get into it a little bit more. I think this is defense against defense. The biggest chance KU has to even be in this game is if their defense shows up, which is the backbone of their team, a strength of their team. If they show up and try to match Texas's defense, play for play, series for series, whatever it takes, turnover for turnover. If they can do that, then the pressure isn't on the offense as much to score 28, 38 points. If they don't show up and they can't match that defensive intensity of Texas, it could be a long afternoon.
You remember in old school football, first downs were a big deal, and then you get to the wild spread offenses and the high scores, not as big a deal. This game, first downs are big deals. For one thing, you're keeping the defense off the field if you're making first downs. So whoever makes the most first downs going to win this football game.
Yeah, Ben Goodman, junior defensive lineman, said, hey, listen, my high school coach told me this a long time ago. It's not about their offense. Our defense has to go out, and we have to be the best defense on the field. He's taken that same lesson and transitioning it into this week, and we'll see. KU absolutely has to show up. Of course they have to score points, but they have to show up defensively to keep this game in the 20s and not have it be in the 40s, or they're in real trouble.
And the defense and special teams might want to score some of those points, because it's going to be hard for the offense.
How many times have we seen that? How many times have we been sitting upstairs thinking the defense has to score here? It could be one of those games, for sure.
That's not a good way to go into a game thinking, but we always do.
Yeah, well, let's think about that and move into prediction time. I want to hear your prediction. How many times is the KU defense going to score, and what's that score going to be? No, give us your final score.
I'm going to say Texas 31 and Kansas 10, and that's not a horribly embarrassing score against the Texas team.
Right.
Texas gets the first pick of recruits on everybody except Corey Avery. Kansas beat Texas on Corey Avery.
Yeah, great point. The running back should be fired up along with, 24 other guys on this roster from Texas. It's cool to see that, whether they win or lose. It's cool to see those guys get fired up to play UT.
We didn't get to talk to Corey Avery, which I find ridiculous.
Yeah, he's played enough.
I mean, that rule keeps going all over the place. Can't talk to freshmen until they play, then they play.
Now it has to be a significant amount of time.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's one of the most important players on the team. If he can play against Big 12 competition, which clearly he can, he's shown enough already, he can certainly talk to the fans through us.
Yeah, I would have loved to talk to him this week about going up against Texas. It would have been awesome.
Silly rules. I mean, geez.
Maybe after the game, who knows? We'll find out. But I'm going to go with a slightly lower prediction, but a little bit similar to yours. I've got Texas 21, Kansas 13. I just don't think Texas's offense is in much better shape than KU's right now. Their offensive line is beat up. And
shambles.
Well, I've heard that on the street a time or two. I don't know where they got that, but... Texas is in shambles right now, but yeah, I think they're in trouble there too. And the Swoops kid at quarterback, he's big, he's physical, he's a good player, waiting to happen. He's just not there yet. A lot like Montello, you know, he's not there yet either.
Although Montello's not physical.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'd like to see more running out of him. That's an old story, but until he does it, it's going to remain a new story.
No doubt.
Who do you have for your primetime player this week?
I think Mr. Primetime, Captain Heaney is my pick. No, they would have a lot better chance if Deion was playing offense, defense, and special teams. He could really help this team.
Well, Campo could see
Dave Campo should give him a call. That wouldn't hurt. I don't know. Did he leave Florida State early?
I think he did give him a call. They got one of their players, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Josh Ihambe, Primetime Prep Academy. Yeah. Well, anyway, enough about Deion. I'm going to go with Captain Heaney, Ben Heaney. I think he makes 45 tackles in this game, maybe even a few more.
His offense is on the field a lot.
That's true. That's true. Maybe not 45 then, but I think he's everywhere. Big news, right? You guys have seen that every game Heaney's played. I'm just going to pick him and maybe make the smart pick this week. I tried a little too hard last week with Keon Stowers. Ben Heaney, prime time, and as prime time as it gets. Who do you have?
I'm staying on that side of the ball. Dexter McDonald. Dexter McDonald had an interception. A teammate had a penalty on the same play, and that interception was nullified because of that. That had to infuriate Dexter McDonald. I see him looking real hard for another pick or two, and if anybody can score a touchdown, maybe he's the guy.
Yeah, that's their thing. The DBs, they don't only have a competition about who can get more picks. They also have a competition who can be the first to take it to the house, to crib it, as they're calling these days. I mean,
well, you are because you're hip.
Well, Chris Harris. Actually, Chris Harris is the guy that I got that from. It's time to crib it. So that's taking it to the house. You remember the MTV show Cribs? That's where it comes from. So I know you used to DVR that all the time. So we'll see if Dexter McDonald can crib it this week. Let's move on and talk about everybody's favorite thing, the most obnoxious man in sports this week. I would love to hear who you think is obnoxious because it carries a lot of weight coming from you.
Plenty of candidates, but I'm going with Keith Olbermann for calling out Derek Jeter, being overhyped, blah, 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 stats this, stats that.
Garbage.
I covered Derek Jeter. He was always better than his stats. I don't watch the Yankees anymore. I don't know how his stats are now. I don't care. The guy was a winner. He's a great teammate, a good role model, and the guy always was better than his stats. Great base runner, real good fielder, just made winning plays, never told anybody when he was hurt because he wanted the other team to consider him a base running threat at all times. Derek Jeter is the greatest shortstop in the history of the greatest, most successful organization in baseball history. Now's not the time to belabor what his numbers were.
No.
Send the guy out with the respect he showed the game and the fans of the game.
Well, that's what everyone else is doing it. Why can't Keith Olbermann do it? That's
how you stand out.
Obnoxious. I agree with you. My obnoxious pick this week is actually two groups of people. One, and let me preface this by saying I really think it's awesome that the Royals are on the verge of making the playoffs. It's been a long time coming. I know a lot of diehard Royals fans that are enjoying it, and they deserve it. It's really cool to see that and to be so close to that. But there are two groups of Royals fans that I think are incredibly obnoxious. Number one, the group that goes out and buys a hat or a shirt right now to jump on the bandwagon and say, hey, I love the Royals. I've always been a fan. Not cool. Very, very obnoxious. I'm not a Royals guy. You don't see me wearing a shirt. I'm not going to go get one, but I will be pulling for them. The second group, and this might even be more obnoxious, the fans, the Royals fans that wrote this team off in June when they had 2 or 3 games in a row that didn't go well. Oh, it's over. Yost is terrible. Enough. Enjoy the ride, people. They're about to make the playoffs.
Everybody wants to be an expert.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't think you should enjoy it right now when you wrote them off in June. If you did, go buy a Washington Nationals hat and pull for them, because you don't deserve the fun that the Royals are having and are about to have. Good for the Royals, bad for you, obnoxious groups. That's all the time we have here. We're going to be back next week to share with you the week that was and the week that will be in KU Sports. But thanks for checking out this episode of KU Sports Extra. And Tom, basketball season's sort of creeping up now. We got to see if we can get Gary Bedore on one of these. Do you think he'll ever do it?
I don't know. Gary's hard to get because if he's doing this, then he's away from his phone. And if he's away from his phone, something might happen with KU basketball. And you know how Gary is. He's pretty much 24/7 on top of KU basketball.
Yeah, every day, all day. You're right.
Plus, he's a bit of a prima donna, so I don't know if we can get him to come on with it.
We got to ask and we got to see what we can do. Maybe we can talk to him about his contract and that kind of stuff. Check back to see if Gary Bedore ever makes it on this episode.
Talk to his agent. We can't talk to him. He's made that very clear.
We're going to find out, and we're going to work hard. I promise you that. Thanks for checking out KU Sports Extra. We'll talk to you guys next time.